Coming up on No Pulp, LSU did its best Sherlock Holmes impression on Saturday. The Tigers exposed 7th-ranked Ole Miss in Death Valley, but can Brian Kelly and company actually compete against the SEC's elite?
It's a question we'll find out in 2 weeks, and the Big 12 continues to beat itself every week, but it seems like two teams might be climbing to the top. We'll figure out today who should be the favorite to own Route 66.
And could Oregon be the Pac-12 team that finally breaks through and nabs the conference's first college football playoff appearance since 2017? We'll discuss all of that and much, much more on No Pulp, and it all starts right now.
Sonny DeShero from Auburn. The freshman never won. The freshman never won championships.
Jeremy, you are an absolute square.
Cleveland the catch. Good if it does. He had it.
Wow, it's getting serious.
Frankly, I'm pretty embarrassed.
Hello, hello. Welcome into the college football classroom, or as we like to call it, No Pulp. Along with my offensive coordinator, Ian Unsworth, I'm John Eads. Hey, we're over halfway through the month of October, which means everything is heating up in college football. And Ian, I got to tell you, a team that's really feeling the heat this weekend would be Ole Miss. The Fighting Lane Kiffins went into Baton Rouge as the nation's 7th best team, and they definitely looked like it in the first half with a 2017 lead at the break. And then the last 30 minutes played out, and the Tigers boat raced the Rebels in the second half, 45-20, the final score. What the heck happened?
Well, after the first quarter, it was 14-3. I mean, Ole Miss came out and shut this crowd up in a Death Valley group that was 100,000 strong. I mean, everybody was wondering what was wrong with Brian Kelly's team because Quinshawn Judkins got the running game going early. 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, a star freshman in the making. But later on in the game, once the LSU offense got going, the LSU defense forced Jackson Dart to throw the ball. He had to dart out of the pocket a whole bunch because, hey, this Tiger front got active. 3 sacks, 7 QB hurries led by the 5-star freshman Harold Perkins Jr., who had 3 of those hurries himself. Brian Kelly finally letting some of that talent on the D-line go, and it proved to work.
You mentioned darting out of the pocket. Well, that's the play that sticks out to me when I watched this game back. It was 24-20 LSU, 4 minutes left in the third quarter. The Rebels moving down the field, looking for that response, looking to take the lead, maybe just cut into that deficit a little bit. Jackson Dart gets pressure in his face, rolls out, just throws it into the back of the end zone, and a safety makes a one-handed interception in double coverage. That pressure was there all day. It gave him fits. And then on the other side, Jaden Daniels was unbelievable. The Rebels had no answers for his legs in this contest. So an impressive win. You take down the 7th-ranked team of the nation. I think a lot of people thought this Ole Miss team was a little overhyped up a little bit. They hadn't really played anybody to this point.
Exactly. No good competition.
So to that, I ask you this. Can LSU compete against the SEC's elite teams?
Ole Miss is unproven, but I think the Tigers really racked up some good momentum with this win. You got Bama in 2 weeks, coming to Death Valley, so that's a big-time test for Nick Saban, but also for Brian Kelly.
I'm looking forward to that matchup.
We will see, but in the Big 12, man, that carousel just keeps on spinning. John, we do this every week.
Every year. This is what the Big 12 does every year.
It's the wild, wild west. And last Saturday, in a purple-on-purple battle of ranked teams, TCU took down Kansas State. Oklahoma State won a shootout, the Cowboys, just so aptly named, against Texas. John, in your eyes, which of these battle of ranked teams was the bigger win?
Well, look, the easy answer here is Texas Christian, but that's not who I'm going with. I'm going with Oklahoma State. They just were, they were taken down last week in Fort Worth in a comeback effort, and the Horned Frogs won that game. So instead of folding in, throwing it in their hand, folding, they come right back and they take down a Texas team that's rejuvenated. They got Quinn Ewers back from injury. I know they haven't looked that impressive this year. They were only ranked 20 in the AP poll, but a lot of people thought this team was going to make that run and come back and reassert itself in the college football playoff conversation. Instead, the Cowboys, they overcome an early deficit in Stillwater and mitigate Quinn Ewers and score enough points offensively to win this game. And the reason why I say the Pokes here as well is that Kansas State only had Adrian Martinez, their starting quarterback, for 1 possession. I know Martinez, you and I saw him in the Big Ten, he wasn't all that good, but this Kansas State team is much better when he's behind center and he's running the show for this team. So I give TCU all the credit in the world, but I think it's the Pokes when it's all said and done that are winning the Big 12, and that's the more impressive win from this weekend.
Oklahoma State plays Kansas State this weekend. That's the college game day game, and that's going to be a massive one across the Big 12 landscape. But listen to this. I'm with you on the Pokes because after this, Oklahoma State plays Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma, West Virginia. Those are the worst 4 teams in the conference. If I told you who the second favorite team on all sports books to win the Big 12, it's Texas. People are just so sold on that talent with
Matthew
the Longhorns.
McConaughey.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey, Steve Sarkisian, whatever. People are sold on that talent. They've still got the second best odds, but they have to play Kansas State and TCU in their next 2 games. 5-2 Texas isn't going to last that much longer.
We'll see. Should be a pretty big carousel. A lot of craziness in the Big 12, like every single year, and we're in. There's some craziness going on in the Pac-12 as well. The conference trying to get their first college football playoff appearance since 2017, and Oregon might be the favorite to land in the field of 4. But UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson doesn't seem to think so. Here's what he had to say following their 45-30 loss. Yeah, they're a really good team, a really great coach team, but at the end of the day, I think if we would have done our jobs to the best of our abilities, they would not have been able to hang with us. That's DTR, the UCLA quarterback. And that's after his squad was blitzed 45-30 in Autzen Stadium. Is he capping or is he not capping, Ian?
I think DTR didn't look at a post-game box score because, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, your team did not punt the ball in this game.
Still lost.
Oregon only punted it once. DTR, it doesn't matter how well you played, you turned the ball over twice, and Bo Nix was 22 of 28 for 5 touchdowns. In all 5 years of Bo Nix playing college football, including 4 of them at Auburn, where his tenure was a disaster, this was the best I've ever seen Bo Nix look on a college football field. The Oregon offense, along with Troy Franklin, who's a budding star at wideout, moved the ball consistently up and down the field, and that UCLA front got no push. The Ducks ran for 262 yards.
Yeah, they had a very balanced attack. That Bo Nix, Troy Franklin connection was there the entire game. UCLA had chances to get back in it. I thought the offense played well. I expected more out of the defense, especially in the fourth quarter. It was 4th down and 4, 38-23 Oregon. They're in good position to win. 4th down and 4 in UCLA's territory in the fourth quarter, and Oregon scores a touchdown on a wheel route to put the game away. Bo Nix just a completely different quarterback when he plays in Autzen Stadium, really just in a home environment, nothing like his away and neutral site self. How can UCLA finish this season? How well do you see them doing, real quick?
I'm not too high on UCLA. They still have to play USC, and who knows, they could drop a clunker. I think they drop back to 15, 20, and probably finish somewhere in the 20 to 25 range. Decent bowl game.
They got some pretty easy games to end out their schedule. You know, the Arizonas, the Stanfords, those kind of teams. I have them going 10-2. They still have USC. That's probably the lone loss. So 10-2 for UCLA. Oregon, though, looking like a college football playoff contender at this point. Coming up next on No Pulp, we're dumping Ian Unsworth and Caleb Nice in the juicer. We'll blend up their arguments and see who drinks the victory smoothie for this week. Don't touch that remote. We'll be right back.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where did cats go on vacation? New York.
Jason, let's go see your room.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Thanks for sticking with us. I'll tell you what, you'll be glad you did. We're here in the juicer for a clash between Ian Unsworth and Caleb Nice. I'm John Eads. I'll be your official for today's game. Guys, I know you're both Phillies fans, emotions riding high, but I hate to break it to you, someone's vibe is getting crushed. Who will that be? Let's find out.
Well, I'm fighting just like the Phillies, so let's go.
You guys ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do this thing. And we're putting your offense on the field first, all right? What has been the most impactful game thus far in the college football season?
Well, speaking of offenses, I'll give you a game that had two pretty darn good ones. Alabama and Tennessee, a 52-49 win for the Vols in Knoxville. What a crazy game this was. Bryce Young balls out, does his best to save a team that has absolutely no defense. Hendon Hooker throws for 385 yards, 5 touchdowns, and Jalen Hyatt has five touchdown catches. Number 11 in orange was sending nightmares through the minds of the Alabama secondary. They just kept on going. And look at this field goal, man. This is something you're only going to get in college football. An absolute knuckleball. It sneaks through the uprights, and 110,000 storm the field. How can you not love college football? Smoke a cigar for me, Tennessee.
Yeah. I'll tell you didn't love college football at first. For the last 50 days, Oregon fans in Eugene have been trying to forget what happened on September 3rd. Burn whatever you're wearing that night. Agree to never speak of it again. But guys, they might have to speak of it again with Oregon's recent success. This team, all of a sudden, now a contender to make the college football playoff. Dan Lanning and Oregon have ripped up 6 straight wins since that abysmal 49-3 season opener loss to Georgia in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Oregon didn't score a touchdown in that game. That happened for the first time since 2017. But since that time, in the 6-game stretch I mentioned, 41 points or more in each game. Translate that for me, Ian. Oregon is a contender to make the college football playoff. But talking about this game, the playoff committee is going to have to circle back to it. If you have a Georgia team that loses in the SEC championship game, they have a one-loss Georgia team, an Oregon team that also has one loss and could win the Pac-12 if they win out.
But no one really cares about the Pac-12, and no one really considers Oregon to be a good opponent. I don't think they tore down the goalposts when Georgia beat Oregon. They did when Tennessee beat Alabama. Oregon's still irrelevant. Ian takes the first question. You're up 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, and I don't think Bo Nix did anything noteworthy in that game. It looked like Auburn Bo Nix, like we talked about just a bit before.
Well, we go from the most impactful game to the most impactful individual remaining game left in the college football season that hasn't happened just yet. Caleb.
Guys, we got Georgia and Tennessee in 2 weeks. There's a reason why tickets for this game are going north of $4,000 a ticket right now. I mean, nothing screams biggest game of the year like a top 5 matchup with a trip to the conference championship game on the line. On one hand, you have a red-hot Tennessee team averaging just over 50 points per game. They're led by Heisman candidate Hendon Hooker. On the other side, Georgia's defense allowing just 9 points per game. All eyes on the Bulldogs defense to see if they're the first who can stop this volunteer offense. And seeing that both teams are unbeaten, guys, I mean, the winner of this game is going to take full control of the SEC East. That means a trip to the conference championship game. Whoever loses that game is going to be sweating out that CFP selection show, waiting for their name to be called.
Well, why don't I give you an even better rivalry that has all the same implications? 2 unbeatens, 2 top 5 teams, control of the Big Ten East. It's the game, the border war, Michigan, Ohio State. This game means everything for everybody that lives in Columbus and Ann Arbor. Last year, Michigan took down Ohio State in the Big House, but this year they're going to the Shoe, and C.J. Stroud and that OSU offense look even better than they did in 2021. So it's going to be a shootout complete with Blake Corum, Heisman contender, and C.J. Stroud, Heisman contender. You cannot miss that game after Thanksgiving. Don't fall asleep on those leftovers.
This one was really hard because you guys know where my loyalties lie here, and everybody loves the big game. But to be the man, you got to beat the man. Georgia's the man right now, and if Tennessee can beat Georgia, I think that's the most impactful game left because that shakes everything up, and it's a wild college football season. So we're all tied up 1-1. Caleb, you get your point back. All right, speaking of what's ahead, what's coming up in the college football season, Ian, I start with you for this one. Which team has the easiest schedule for the rest of the season?
I'm going with USC. Out in the West, the South Carolina Trojans have already taken down a bunch of good opponents. They've only lost to Utah, and that was by 1 point on the road with some questionable officiating left. One ranked opponent, that's UCLA, and yes, we already talked about what happened in Eugene last week. Arizona and California are not very good. Colorado also on that schedule, the worst team in the Pac-12. They were the last team in college football to get a win, and we know that Notre Dame is mids with a capital M-I-D-S. They've lost to Marshall, they've lost to Stanford, and they're probably losing to Syracuse this weekend.
Yep. You skim over that UCLA game, Ian, like they're a nobody. I mean,
they're playing in the same stadium.
This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country, and you're forgetting something big. By the time USC plays UCLA, UCLA will most likely be a top 10 team, and you're forgetting this is an intra-city rivalry in LA. These guys have grown up playing against each other. Rankings, I mentioned top 10. thrown out the door in this game. I mean, emotions are so high, it's like Michigan, Ohio State, like you mentioned.
All right. I think we get it. UCLA is going to be a tough game. What do you think? Who's your team with the easiest schedule?
Clemson has the easiest remaining schedule. They're 4 games away from being undefeated. I mean, they have Notre Dame in 2 weeks. You mentioned already, Notre Dame, not a strong team. 77th in the country in points per game against the Tigers that boast one of the best defenses. And then you got 2 games against weak teams, Louisville and Miami. And then they finish with 25 South Carolina in Death Valley. If you're talking about UCLA and South Carolina as these 2 games, you can't tell me UCLA is going to be the easier game, guys.
UCLA is the best opponent on both of those schedules. Louisville's awful, Miami's awful. October's over. They play them in November. That's South Carolina. So Clemson has the easiest remaining schedule. There you go. So 2-1 Caleb. You're in a bit of a hole here. Here we go for the last question. Caleb, you are leading us off. Who will win AP College Football Coach of the Year?
Willie Fritz from Tulane. Who? Yeah, you heard me. Willie Fritz from the Pelican State. He's got the Green Wave ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 1998. That's the same year that the 2 oldest guys on this Green Wave team were born. I mean, last year, Willie and Tulane went 2-10, now off to a 7-1 start, and the threat to steal the American Athletic Conference from Cincinnati. Willie's built a solid defense down there. Tulane, one of just 17 FBS teams, allowing under 300 yards a game. A lot of credit has to be given to the transfers that Willie's brought in. And there's just 3 current starters on this year's team who were not on the roster last year. I mean, that jump from year to year has to be noted. That's a wave down there in Tulane that I want to ride. Only one. Only room for one on this surfboard.
Tulane's a party school. It's not legit. I'll give you something that is legit. It's Sonny Dykes at TCU. He took over for Gary Patterson, who was the winningest head coach in Horned Frog history, and now he's got TCU top 10 in the country, averaging 522 yards per game, 44.2 points after 28 points per game last year. He's got Max Duggan playing like an All-American. Quentin Johnson on the outside is an NFL caliber talent, and he's finally utilizing him well. TCU is going to be in a New Year's Six Bowl. Stamp that and stamp Sonny Dykes as the best new head coach in college football.
Sonny Dykes did it at SMU. He's now doing it at TCU. 4 straight wins over ranked teams. All respect to Willie Fritz and Tulane, but if you play NCAA 14, anybody can go 7-0 with Tulane. So Ian Unsworth, your winner of the Juicer and comeback effort, 2nd week in a row. We're now 2-0 in the Juicer. Caleb, thanks so much for playing. We've got your check waiting for you at the door. Speaking of big checks coming up after the break, we're talking FCS, the teams that usually get splattered, lump sums of dough. But Ian, I will share with you our personal picks for the best subdivision teams and players. That's next on No Pulp.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Hey, welcome back to No Pulp, where we're keeping the juice flowing. Alongside John Eads, I'm Ian Unsworth. We're going to change our focus a little bit to bracketology, not hoops, but to the FCS. We've got the standings here. John, when we're talking FCS, we've got some schools that aren't really that recognized, but what about this list of teams you won't really recognize stands out to you?
My eyes go to number 3. Let me introduce you to Sacramento State. Off to a 7-0 start this season, they hail from the Big Sky Conference, and they're ranked 2nd or 3rd, depending on where you look, in the FCS. And, when you think about this team, you may think they're not that good. They're just beating up on a couple of FCS teams. No, they went to Fort Collins and absolutely stung Colorado State 41-10 back in late September. They took that big check, they ran with it, and they got the win. That was a big-time win over an FBS team, and most recently a win over number 7 Montana in overtime as well. And really a big reason why is this offense is so dangerous. I know we're both Michigan fans. Remember that Middle Tennessee State game 2019?
Oh, yeah.
The quarterback? Asher O'Hara. He's leading this Hornets offense. He's got some Johnny Manziel in him. I like him.
I got another one for you. Undefeated Holy Cross. Holy cow.
Crusaders.
Holy Cross took down Buffalo earlier this year. It was 37-31, and they were down 14-0 in the second quarter. They've got a dual-threat quarterback, a Long Islander named Matthew Sluka. He leads the team in rushing and passing, and wideout Jalen Coker is dynamic. He's got 7 touchdowns in 7 games. But the real story here, all that combined, is the head coach, Bob Chesney, who took over in 2018. He's got winning seasons in all 5 years. And Holy Cross won their first FCS playoff game last year. They should do a lot more this coming season. So, John, from teams to players, which guy stands out to you in the FCS? Could be a draft prospect or just someone who's blowing it up.
Well, this guy will be a draft prospect, and I'll give you a hint. It's prime time, baby. Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur Sanders, as you probably could guess, plays for his dad down at Jackson State. The sophomore leads the 5th-ranked Tigers as the quarterback. And, hey, he's a former 4-star recruit. He could have played anywhere. Bama wanted him. Florida wanted him. Georgia, Oregon. Everybody wanted this guy. Instead, he decided to go the FCS route and is now 3rd in the subdivision level in passing yards with over 2,200 this year. Also 3rd in points responsible for, accounting for at least 3 touchdowns per game. Keep an eye on this guy over the next couple of years because, if his dad takes a job at the FBS level, if he gets a bit of an upgrade there, if he decides to do that, he could transfer with his dad. He's also just good enough straight up to play for a Bama, to play for an Oregon, and also look out for him if he doesn't go that route to be an NFL draft prospect and shine some light on the HBCUs and the FCS as a whole. This guy's a gunslinger, and I love what he does down to Jackson State.
Speaking of NFL, you like Cooper Kupp?
I do.
Well, I've got 2 of them for you. Jackson and Jaden Yankee, who both play at South Dakota State. These guys are both 6'3", 210, dynamic players. You see, Jaden's the lesser of the 2 stat-wise, but these guys both have the skill sets of Kupp, who was 6'3", 210 at Eastern Washington. They've got speed. They're bigger than most of the guys they're playing against, so they know how to stiff-arm tackles, use their strength really well. And hey, man, 800 combined yards, 8 touchdowns, John. I like these guys going in the 3rd or 4th round and making an impact after a few years in the league.
So what you're telling me is these guys will be afterthoughts in the next fantasy football draft. And then out of nowhere, we'll get a dynamic quarterback and just emerge as the top receivers in the league. That's what you're telling me?
You're calling Matthew Stafford dynamic?
I would. I'm a Lions fan, so I'm going to hype him up a little bit.
That's a tough way to go, and that's our Division 1A coverage. Yeah, they won a Super Bowl last year, but this year it's not
Rings
good.
Talk.
We're moving back up a level after the break. We've got the plays of the week, your game of the week, and closing thoughts after this. Snow Pulp is back in 60 seconds.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with S.
Snow.
No.
Snow-covered trees.
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones.
Don't even.
And explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
Wrapping up shop on this edition of No Pulp, Eads and Ian Unsworth. I'm John Eads. Ian, do you know what time it is by chance?
It's money time.
Actually, it's Plays of the Week time, baby. What you got for us, Ian?
Well, I don't have one play of the week, John. I've got 4 plays of the week. Oh, they're not that good. Weber State came into this weekend 6-0, the 5th-ranked team in the country, and they lost 43-38 to Montana State because of 4 safeties. That's a new FCS record. Long snapper Grant Sands airmailed Jack Burgess not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times, and they were all woefully bad. You're getting the yips. Yeah, he had to kick it out of the back of the end zone. That's how bad it was.
They give that guy a scholarship?
Yeah, I feel sorry for Weber State, but hey, sometimes that's how football goes. Those small positions make a big difference.
That's a tough day at the office. Jeez. I mean, I think long snapper is the easiest position to play in college football. You thought wrong. Hey, I'm going back to that Kansas State TCU game. All right, we got Cade Warner, wide receiver for the Wildcats. Obviously a big game, elimination game potentially for the Big 12 championship. Oh, give me that. He doesn't need 2 hands, 1 hand. All that's needed for Cade Warner, a guy that didn't play that much last year, didn't produce. He's right-hand dominant, but uses his left to rip that thing away from the corner. What a snag. That looked like me on scout team. There's no film. There's no proof that that was me, but that looked like me on scout team in high school. I got to tell you.
Cade Warner might have ripped that dude's mustache off. He got it off the face mask.
Pulled that thing. Pulled that thing. And now it's time for our favorite segment. One of the games that might be featured on Plays of the Week coming up in the future. It's our No Pull Game of the Week. And oh, baby, it's a big one.
It's time for the No Pull Game of the Week.
Number 2, Ohio State. Number 13, Penn State in Happy Valley. Need we say more? What kind of taints this game, though, before we really break down and get into it, is when the kickoff is happening. Hey, you're not going to find bigger fans of Fox's Big Noon Kickoff than us right here. We could do without Gus Johnson and his crazy outfits.
Not good.
But in any case, this game's kicking off at noon rather than at night, which, you know, isn't the best. But anyways, a loss effectively eliminates Penn State from everything this year. That's why it's a big game. On the other side, I think some people are starting to doubt Ohio State. Not starting to. They have been since the beginning of the season because they haven't really played anybody just yet. And that's why this is kind of a prove-it game for them. And for Penn State, everything's on the line. Your back's against the wall.
Well, people are flaking on the Buckeyes, but they are 13.5-point favorites. It should be a lot more. As you mentioned, it's not a whiteout game. Ohio State just ran roughshod on Iowa. It's not a letdown spot. The Buckeyes should be locked in. Here, I've got one stat, and it's the padlock stat coming into this game. Penn State as a team has 30 touchdowns, and this is a Nittany Lions squad that should have revitalized its rushing attack this year. C.J. Stroud, 28 passing touchdowns. Yeah, Ohio State's going to win this game by at least 2.5 scores.
Jackson Smith and Jigba also back for this Buckeyes team, and while he was absent, they had guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka just step up for this team. This offense is unreal. I don't think Penn State can keep up. You got a nice bounce-back win against Minnesota, but the Buckeyes, a different squad. But that's next week. Let's stay with this week. Here's my final word. The preseason polls are just awful. I mean, listen to this. Notre Dame was ranked 5th in the country coming into the season. Yeah, that's the same team that lost to Marshall in front of touchdown Jesus. Now, Texas A&M, right behind at 6th. Yeah, Jimbo Fisher and company, 3 and 4.
Terrible.
Okay, Oklahoma, 9. They lost to Texas, 49-0. I mean, really? All right, last two. Michigan State was 15. Miami, Florida, 16. What the heck are we doing? These preseason polls are just an absolute abomination. Absolute abomination. That's all I have to say.
You know that kid that was not very good at video games, but had his parents spend some money on it, and yeah, they got the best team, they got the best loadout, but they were still bad at the game? That's Miami. Miami spent $10 million per year on Mario Cristobal. That's an 8-year contract for $80 million. They got a new OC, ripped the Broyles Award winner away from Michigan and Josh Gaddis. The team is dealing out NIL like it's hotcakes. And this weekend, they turned it over 8 times against Duke. That's an average of 1 turnover every 7.5 minutes. It was almost like a simulation. That kid playing video games broke his controller.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ian, Miami not going to be a team that's featured in the first college football playoff rankings coming out next week. Really excited for those. Hope you guys are as well. We'll have full reactionary coverage of that on this show. But that's going to do it for this edition of No Pulp. For my OC, Ian Unsworth, and Ben Spector, along with our entire producer team and everybody else behind the scenes, I'm John Eads. Check out full episodes of No Pulp on Citrus TV's YouTube page and find more coverage at Citrus TV Sports on Twitter. Thank you so much. Have a great week and good night.